Wow, once again, Renegade is definitely killing it with these amazing new designs and releases. I just can't wait to get my hands on all of the new figures coming out. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the Renegade Con and do a painting video of Cobra Commander. I'll get you next time, Joe. Let's pretend that never happened and get into the video.
Welcome, heroes. This video will be the ultimate guide to miniature painting. We will be going over all the tools and supplies you need and beginner-friendly techniques to get your miniature ready for any battlefield. Whether you've been painting for years or just getting started, I'm sure there'll be something in this video that will help you along your journey. We'll be painting up the big bad villain, G.I. Joe, Cobra Commander, specifically from Heroscape. Super cool. I'm not sponsored by Renegade, but they were generous enough to send me the miniature Cobra Commander to do this paint video. I'll make sure to leave links in the description of all the tools and paints and brushes, and if you want to, order any Cobra Commanders and his crew, I'll leave that all in the description for you. So let's go ahead and get into step one.
Alright, prepping your mini is something that I have honestly skipped over a lot and suffered the consequences. It's real simple. You just need an X-Acto knife and you need to clean up the mold lines. Whether it's a fully assembled miniature or one that you assemble yourself, there's always going to be mold lines. It's just part of the manufacturing. Real simple though, you just need to get your X-Acto knife, go around and scrape it all off. There are some times you might need to fill in some places too, but mostly it's just scrape off all the mold lines and you'll be good to go, and you'll be thanking yourself later when you don't see these showing up in your final results. Alright, before we can actually prime the miniature, I want to prep and get them mounted because it's a lot easier and you're not going to be touching the miniature and get fingerprints on them. And you can get better angles too because you're able to tilt it and turn it. So I just get a piece of wood, some poster putty, and you just twist them on there real good and nice and tight. And he's not going anywhere. And it is very helpful though because, yeah, you can turn it upside down and it makes it a lot better. So I usually just go black. It's one of the easiest, fastest ways to do your priming, and you'll get really good results. And if you miss anything that's hard to reach, you won't have a problem. When you're priming, you always want to start spraying not directly on the miniature, because if you do, it'll make a lot more mess. And you want to do just a few thin coats, and passing back and forth, be about a foot away when you do that painting is ideal. Now we're going to do what they call zenithal highlighting, and this is really just trying to replicate the light of the sun from coming straight down on him, which works real well. And there you go. And the other thing that it does too is it makes the details a lot easier to pick out because it's not just all black. So I like it. Now you just need to get paint. Obviously, gotta get all our supplies. So if you don't have any paint, this is a great paint set. It has quite a few colors. It's made from Army Painter and should be able to paint so many things because it has all the primary colors and off colors. Also comes with a paintbrush, and this paintbrush is pretty good. I'll end up using the same paintbrush for the entire miniature, so it's about a medium size, which is pretty good. You just want a really good tip, but you can get yourself a set of brushes later on, but this will do the trick for now. And then the other thing that's overlooked and probably the most important tool you're going to have is a wet palette. So it has a sponge that goes in the bottom. You put that sponge in there, and that's going to have a lot of water in it, and it kind of soaks it up, and it keeps this piece of paper moist. And so this is just, I'm prepping it right now. Just add a little bit of water, get everything nice and wet, and after that we'll just dump out the excess. So the magic of the wet palette is it keeps your acrylic paints from drying up so you can use them longer, and also you can properly thin them out. And that is probably the most important part of the wet palette, because you're not supposed to paint directly from the pot onto your miniatures. If you do that, you will have bad results. It'll be like chalky, and that's one of the biggest beginner mistakes. And I did that when I first started painting too. So now that we got our paint and our wet palette and we got our brush, there's one other thing that I think is very helpful is a handle. So a cool little Citadel handle, works for minis, and there's a larger one too for double base type figures. But you just stick it in there, it makes it so you can hold on to it. You're not going to get fingerprints over your paint jobs and have so much more control. Okay, what do they say? If you don't plan, you plan to fail. So I like to plan out what colors I'm going to use, and that might change, you know, and it does in this one. I do change a couple of colors, but we go through, you know, blue here, gold there, red here, and just kind of look everything out and figure out what you want to do. You know, some matte black for those things. And many times there might be more colors you need. Cobra Commander is pretty simple, so we don't need much more than 5 colors, but generally it's good to try to stick with the least amount of colors possible. Now, I always say you should stretch yourself and try to do something different every time you paint. So that's what we will be doing with this sword. We're going to try to blend it like the art. Okay, now we can actually start painting, and we start out with our base coats. And what's important is thinning those paints out. Like I said, you want it pretty thin because you'll lose the detail if you don't. So as you can see as this is going on, like you can still see the black and white underneath there. But once you get the second coat on there, it barely shows through. See, like with that second coat, it starts to really cover it up, but just a little will come through, which that's how you want it. And now we're going to grab some of that black and get his boots and his other boot. So yeah, and the base coating it's real simple for the most part, just blocking everything in. It's not too difficult. I like to start with the things that are kind of difficult to reach, because if you take all the really easy stuff and then you take the hard stuff later, most likely there's a high chance of you getting some of your paint on some of the stuff you've already painted, so you have to go back and fix it up. So I definitely recommend painting the hard to reach things so that it makes it a lot easier for you. Well, what do you think? He's starting to come along, isn't he? That black looks really good. Definitely that second coat made a difference. So now we're going to do his gun. We're going to use brown on his gun. And I'm going to do some details on there, but because it's too hard to reach in those, you can just kind of cover everything up, especially because I'm going to use silver. And it makes it a lot easier to do that, because the metallic paints have such good coverage. It's not that big a deal. Right here, I'm going back and actually just touching up. You can see I kind of got that brown everywhere on his fingers. So the foreplanning would have been to use the brown first and then come hit the black. But sometimes as you're painting, you don't really catch those little details ahead of time. So you just got to go back and clean it up. But it's not that big a deal. It's kind of nice that you can do that. So we got silver for his face, mask, screen visor thing, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, these metallic paints, they go on real thick. And I really like metallic paints. I don't know why, but I do. And sometimes, usually you only need one coat. So we get all the little details on his pistol as well with the same silver. You could use any color. I guess you could use gold, but there's a lot of gold on him, so I wanted to use something a little different, and it kind of ties into his mask, so we have some different contrasts. What do you think of that? It looks pretty good. I'm pretty excited about this. He's starting to pull together. All right, so now we got the reds. They go on all these little cobra seals. So we got one here, one there, and yeah, these are very fine details. You got to get in there. This is where a lot of brush control comes in. And the brush and the paint kind of do the work. You just slightly dab it on there and it starts to spread around. But yeah, you got to be very careful that you don't push too hard and flood it, get everything red. You have to go back and fix it. So this is where our patience and light brush strokes come into play. And then we got the cape back here. So this is one of the spots I probably would recommend doing the red on the back of the cape first, because getting back up in there was difficult. And I did get a little bit of red here and there, so I did have to go back and touch up some of the blue here and there, but that's just part of the painting. Wow, look at that. Looking pretty good. It's looking almost done, but we got one more big base coat to put on is gold. And so the tainted gold that comes in this set was just not bright enough for me, so I went with I grabbed a different gold that I already had. So you could do that, or like I was pointing out, the yellow in the set would work just as well. And look gold enough. The thing about the actual metallic paints though is they do have kind of that shine to them. And like I said, I really like that. I like the metallics, so I go ahead and just use this other one. So what's nice is though you can get on Amazon, you can get on Army Painter, Citadel, wherever. Go to your local game store and you can get yourself these single pots of paint just for a couple $. And that way you don't have to buy like a whole giant set when you just want one specific color or paint. That's what I would recommend doing. Probably just go to your local game store. And now he's really coming together. Get all these little gold buttons. Got all his belts and straps. He is looking really awesome. There are some techniques to do non-metallic metal, and I haven't gotten around to it, but definitely one of those things I'll have to try out and push myself to do, which it's just using regular acrylics to make it look like metal. A lot of layering, different things like that. So getting all these little edges, it's gotta be real careful. Just a little bit of paint, you might have to go over it a few times so that you don't spill over everywhere, which I did okay, but I did have to go back and touch up a few black spots and a few blue spots that I got a little too much on, but that is okay. That's what's nice about using acrylic paints, because boots here. And I use a lot of speed paints, which that's another recommendation. Definitely using speed paints. I got a lot of videos on those, painting up figures as well, so you can check those out, see what you like. There's definitely pros and cons for both, but most of the YouTube professionals recommend just getting into acrylic paint because the ceiling is a lot higher on those than speed paints. Check him out. He's looking pretty dang close to being done. All that gold makes a huge difference with how he looks. All the accents and everything, but our base coats are just about done. Now we're just gotta do that dagger. And so, like I said, this is where you kind of push yourself to do something different. I haven't done a lot of what we'll be doing is like glazing, and so I want purple at the bottom, but as you can see, it transitions into a red. So we gotta kind of figure out how to do that with the two different colors and create that transition. And so we go ahead and put down just a base coat. we're gonna put a bunch of purple down at the bottom. It's pretty simple. And then we'll leave the other half so that we can put down some red on the other half. Just real small, a little piece. There we go. Purple. Now it's time to do the other half, red. So I've got the red, and I'm going to do kind of half of the blade, not the full thing. Kind of stick to that upper part a little bit easier, so I have that natural transition there. Okay, look at that. I mean, that looks cool. All right, now it's time to do this glazing technique. Basically, what you do is you're gonna just add a lot of water, little droplets of water, until you can thin it out enough that it's nearly translucent. So we're getting there now, just about there. Yeah, see, like, it's very opaque, but we still have color. So we're gonna put that on. Since it's so watery in such a small spot, yeah, kind of get a lot on there. But if you go over it again, you can kind of spread it out, wipe it off. But yeah, so for the first coat, I would just go over the entire thing and get everywhere with the first glaze. There you go. So now that purple's dimmed down just slightly, but you can see a little bit of red tint. And then we go up just a bit and we do the same thing again. So you're gonna do this however many times until it looks good, but we're gonna do this about 4 or 5 times, and each time we just go up a little bit more. So here we go, we got all that. There's one coat, and then we go again, and I just go up a little bit more again. And you keep doing it until it just looks good. So there we go, one more coat. And again, I guess we could skip through this. But I don't know, some of these parts I just enjoy. It's entertaining to watch and see and get the details, so it makes it easier if you're trying to follow along and do it the same. And now, after I've done it this many times, I felt like the bottom just wasn't purple enough, so I thinned out the purple to make a light glaze, just to get the very bottom tip to bring that color back up a little bit, so that it'd be more pronounced, that purple at the bottom. Just don't want to go too high, just staying towards the very bottom. There we go. I mean, for not doing this very often, I think it turned out well. Alright, time for doing some washes. Nolan Oil from Citadel is like the go-to wash for almost everybody, and it's just great. It's black, basically. So pretty simple, not too much tint. So now you see, I wipe a lot off on my hand because then I can suck some of it up. As you see, there was a little too much in there. But the idea of this is to go around and catch shadows and things like that. And the more detailed your miniature is with like textures, the more the wash does. Like on fur, amazing. Washes are amazing. But you don't have to use washes. You could skip over that part and just move into some like layering and highlighting. For beginners, I think, and then even advanced, you know, the washes are kind of like this magic juice that really does a lot. So I'd definitely recommend using washes for a bit as you get started out. But being more intentional, I think, is really good, because sometimes you just cover the whole miniature with it. And there's some places where it doesn't help, it makes it worse, which I actually did put it on his cape on the back, and you'll see as I turn it around sometimes it's kind of blotchy, and it really didn't work out well. So I actually go back and just repaint it black and get rid of the wash from the back. So, but doing his pants, you know, all the blue is really good because there's so many little creases, and you can see it just fills in those really well, and it makes it pop a lot. And here on the helmet, I put a bunch on there. and there ended up just being too much. So you can see I come in here and just suck it up, the excess, and just get it exactly where you want it. So you're just controlling the wash, controlling the amount that you put on to get a better result. Because on like flat surfaces too, like generally it doesn't work out too well. So he's looking pretty good. He's looking pretty good, and that's nice too. Just it really pops all these details, like on his gun. I think it turns out really nicely just about everywhere. So picking out the spots and the colors you do, just not doing the entire miniature, is what I would recommend. And we're just about done with this step. Just getting all the black, most of the gold. Really the only place that I just don't hit is the back of the cape, because that turned out pretty bad. And then you also the red on the cape, because they're just big flat surfaces and it ends up just looking kind of blotchy, and it doesn't actually help it, and that's just understanding how the washes work and how good it'll be. And again, you can always throw a little down, do a little test, and if it don't look good, you can just put your paint back on. It's really nice about using acrylic paints again versus speed paints, because I've used a lot of speed paints, and speed paints are basically like washes, but you can't really touch up speed paints. If you make a mistake with speed paints, you're kind of in trouble. So you have to be very controlled and very careful and decisive on everything that you do when you use speed paints. So, and the reason I talk about so much about speed paints is because I use them a lot, and you see me use them a lot too. So, and I think they're very good for beginners, but you just have to have a lot of brush. Or with acrylics, you can make more mistakes. There we go. He's turning out really nice. So highlights. Highlights is where we come back in, because especially with the wash, you could skip the wash step and you still do highlights. But when you do wash, I think it's really important to come back and do highlights. Basically, you just take the base color that you originally used, we go back, and we hit just the edges and tips of all of our colors, because the wash kind of dulls things down. And then you can take that a step further, and the easiest way is just add in a little bit of white, or you can find a color that works real well and do that too. That, like a different red, but that's brighter red, but it's easy just to mix in some white and do that. So you go around and hit all the places again, but you just do a little bit less. So whatever you put on the coat below, you don't want to completely cover that. You just do a little bit less each time, so that kind of creates this building effect towards the light where we would think it is, which is straight up the top. Now we do the same thing with some blue. Go and hit some of the areas. And doing these highlights really makes the miniature pop after the wash. So, let us know in the comments, why you're getting into painting, what you enjoy about it, because there is so many aspects of painting that are different for everybody. I think as you get into it, for me, you really you get into this like flow state, and everything, just forget about everything else, and it's just you and your miniature and your paints, and it's quite relaxing sometimes. Especially the better you get at it, the more enjoyable I think it becomes. So here we get some highlights on his helmet, looking pretty good. Grab some more white, mix it in with the black, so that we can highlight up some of the black, which kind of turns into this gray, obviously. So it's hard to pick out black highlights, but I think it works well because it does give it a little different, and it stands out a little bit. So look at his fingers, the little top part of his helmet, and just kind of go around and out all the spots that are towards the top where light would touch, and it's a hard thing at first. Like, it's easy to say, but to execute can be a little bit harder, because you're like, where the heck is the light? shine on this. And so yeah, you typically just pick the raised areas on the miniature. So we kind of just go and hit raised areas along here on the cape, and just try to get just a little bit of those details, and again, it goes a long way. I think every miniature should be based. I think you should do something for it. Don't just do black or brown, like give it some character. So I usually paint it black though, most of the time. And then I have just these, I got a little basing kit. And so I got some sand and some rocks. And then you get this glue. Put the glue all over the bottom of the base. Like this is the fastest, easy way to do basing. There's a lot of different cool things you can do though. Like for Halou shot on the Heroscape figure, I made a lava base. Super awesome. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, once it's all glued, I just slide it in here, shake it around, get it completely covered, tap off the excess, and like anything come off that didn't get attached to the glue, and clean it up a little bit. And there you go. Look at that. Pretty much done. It could just be done that way if you like the way those colors look. Me, I personally like a little bit darker, so grab some of this wash Agrax Earth Shade and just go around and cover the base. There we go. A little bit darker, but it's still, the wash lets it stand out. Now let's protect all of our hard work with some varnish. I prefer using the satin because it gives it a little bit of shine, but not too much shine. Gloss, that's a little too much. I did actually grab some gloss and put it on its sword and a little bit on its visor, so those would be a little bit more shiny. But everywhere else, we just go with the satin and even the base, because then that actually kind of seals all those rocks. And there you go. We're looking pretty dang good. It's still a little wet. Let's show off our miniature. How does that look? Oh man, I wish it looked better on camera because I think it doesn't do it justice. But he turned out so well, and I'm so excited to get him on the battlefield and fight some Joes. But there you have it. That's Cobra Commander, and this was my ultimate guide for beginners to get into miniature painting. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope this helps you on your journey as you get painting and growing as a painter. And I hope you enjoy the hobby. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.